All right, well, hello again, GVC fam. This is take two for me of this video because I was sitting in my normal spot, but it's late in the day and the light behind me was just so bright that even with the lights on above me and in front of me, you really couldn't see my face at all. So I'm trying this again. Hopefully this works a little better. All right. Guys, we are in week 14 of our study of the Catechism. That means we've come to question and answer 14, which says this. Question: did God create us unable to keep his law? And the answer is no. But because of the disobedience of our first parents, Adam and Eve, all of creation is fallen. We are all born in sin and guilt, corrupt in our nature, and unable to keep God's law. All right, so last week we saw that since the fall, no mere human being has ever been capable of keeping God's law perfectly, right? So the question that remains for us this week then is, did God create us that way? Did he create us unable to keep his law? Has it always been that way? And the answer is no. And I think we see this very clearly as we read in Genesis 1 and 2, we read the creation narratives, and we see that, as God is creating all these things, and it's sort of unfolding like a song, right? And he creates the heavens and the earth and the dry land and the water and the fish in the sea and the vegetation and, the lights at night and the lights during the day, and it unfolds very poetically, and it kind of reaches its crescendo in his creation of humans in his image. And then God sort of steps back and takes a look at it all, and he says, behold, it is very good. And the Hebrew word that is used there is actually better translated as it is exceedingly good. Okay, so it exceeds expectations. It's so good that it spills over into everything else, that everything that comes from it, everything it produces is good, right? It's good all the way through. And so before the fall, human beings enjoyed perfect peace and harmony with God, with one another, and with all of the rest of creation. There was no fear, there was no worry, there was no sadness, because there was no sin, right? This was a completely sin-free environment. It was free, even from the thought of sin, okay? So by definition then, in a world without sin, everyone was not only able, but did keep the law of God perfectly. Human free will had not yet been corrupted by suspicion of others and by selfish ambition and by pride. But then along came the snake, right? And the snake planted these seeds of doubting God's goodness in human minds. All right, the snake made Adam and Eve question whether God was really good, right? He suggested that, even though God had only made one rule, right? He said the simple rule was this: you can eat of everything in the garden. It's all for you. Enjoy it, love it. But here's the one rule. The one rule is don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's it. And he had made this rule really as a simple test of trust and obedience. But the snake said to Adam and Eve, he got into their heads and he said, God is just trying to keep his power over you. He's trying to put you under his thumb. He's trying to make you subject to him. And if you just eat from that tree, then you're going to be free from all that, and then you can have all the power. And they believed it. And so they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And in so doing, they released sin into the world in a way that they could never reverse, right? This is the disobedience of our first parents that the Catechism is talking about here. And as I mentioned last week then, since then, Since the fall, sin is being passed on from generation to generation, and the human race has still not been able to find a way to fix the problem for ourselves, no matter what we've tried. But the good news is that God, right there in the garden, right at the beginning when this all first happened, God made a promise in Genesis 3. He promised that one day a child was going to be born who was going to crush the head of the snake once and for all. He was going to be bruised in the process, but ultimately he was going to triumph over sin and death for good. And of course that child is Jesus, right? And because of what Jesus did, we now have the promise that when he comes again, that we will be returned to that original state of being able to keep the law of God, being able to live holy lives set apart for him, lives of obedience and trust and peace and true joy, and we'll be able to lead a life pleasing to God again, which is an incredible thing. But that time has not yet come. All right, and so next week we're going to talk about how we're supposed to relate to the law of God in the meantime. But that's about all I have to say about that for now. All right, everyone, have yourselves a good week, and I'll see you next time.